From the News Channel 5 network, this is SportsLine.
Good evening and welcome to SportsLine. I'm Steve Layman. Glad to have you here with us tonight on News Channel 5+. And we have a special hour planned for you this evening as we honor our good friend and former colleague here at News Channel 5 and News Channel 5+, Mark Howard. Mark passed away early last month at age 65. But worked here at News Channel 5 for 20 years, from 1986 through 2006. Later went on to be a very popular radio host here in town at 104.5 The Zone. Worked on Titans pregame and postgame shows. Also worked pregame and postgame on television for the Nashville Predators as well. And was really a fixture in the sports community here in Nashville for the better part of 3 decades. We miss Mark dearly for sure, for his talent, but also for the great man he was and that big sense of humor that he had. I never had the fortune to work with Mark personally here at News Channel 5, but certainly knew him in the community and in those other roles after the time that I got here. And the few things that were very much clear about Mark Howard were the fact that he was a consummate professional. I'm not sure if anyone in the market knew more about Nashville sports or sports in general than Mark Howard did. Ask him a question, he knew the answer. He also had an incredible sense of humor in the way he carried himself day in and day out, and also put that into his work, whether it be on the radio or during his time here on TV at News Channel 5. And he also had a monster heart for his kids, for his family, for the people he worked with, and for Nashville and the community around. And we certainly miss Mark Howard, and on Thursday there'll be a memorial service to honor him, and I think there'll be more on that coming up throughout the show tonight. But we have several guests lined up, and the man that got it all together tonight is the man that brought Mark Howard here back in 1986 and served as his boss and colleague and friend for all those 20 years here at News Channel 5, the legendary Hope Hines, our former sports director. And Hope joins us here tonight in the studio. Hope, it's great to see you, as always. I hate that it is under these circumstances, but I wanted to begin the program because you have several guests lined up to talk about Mark in a much better way than I can tonight. But I wanted to begin the program because shortly after we all got the news of Mark's passing, you called me up and suggested this idea, which was a great idea. And I just want to give people perspective at home because you hadn't worked on a daily basis with Mark Howard for 16 years. You hadn't been around him on a daily basis in that long. You know, it had been a while. But those 20 years meant a lot to you, and he meant a lot to you, and that's why we're here tonight. I
had enough Mark Howard during those years to last a lifetime, believe me. But I'm so happy and so thrilled to be here tonight. I told somebody earlier today, Steve, there's a huge void in my world right now because of the absence of Mark Howard. He left a big, gigantic hole. I know he didn't mean to, but he did, and he's gone, and now we're going to deal with it. And one of the ways that we're going to deal with that in a loving, respectful, admirable way is tonight, is interviewing his friends, people he worked with, his colleagues, and just talk about the Mark Howard that we all knew and in the way that we all knew him. I knew him in one way. George Plaster will know him in another. His good friend Jack Sells in another. And all of the people that I have lined up here tonight will know him in a different way. But we all are feeling the heartbeat of Mark Howard tonight. That heartbeat will remain with every one of us for as long as we live, because Mark was a huge personality. Mark was a person who didn't do things in a small way. Whatever he did, he just walked through it and mowed the grass as he went. And that's what we love about Mark. He was special. So I'm just tickled to death to be here tonight in his honor and to talk about him. I know a lot of the viewers out there, and certainly the other people who work in this building, remember Mark even back to 2006 and those years before that, and other people know him through his work elsewhere in this community. As a professional, because you were his boss for 20 years, how is Mark the storyteller and sportscaster? He was both, and it worked so much better for him. I will say this, it worked so much better for him on radio than it did on television because you got more time. His personality could bloom and blossom, die for a while, come back again and bloom and blossom again all in the same show. And he did that a lot. But in television, you know, you have I used to tell people, they give us 3.5 minutes here, as you know. Is it 3.5 now, or is it 3? Or is
on a good day?
On a good day, yeah, exactly, whatever it might be. And then you got to cram it all in. But he was a star. He shined on radio because of all of that knowledge that he kept housed up there in that brilliant brain of his. And but to know him as a sportscaster was amazing. You know, when Channel 5 put out the word in '86 that we were looking for a weekend sportscaster, you can imagine tapes from all over the country poured in, and it was my job to sit for hours and days and even weeks, whatever it took, to go through all the tapes with some help with some other people. I wasn't the only one, but I took the lead role in it. And looking at all the videotapes that came through there, and man, it was maddening. There were too many. There were so many, and everybody looked good. And I couldn't find anybody. And all of a sudden one day I put this tape in and I pushed the on button, and there he was. I mean, in about 30 seconds I said, this is our guy. Now the next thought I had, Steve, was, you think I'm going to hire this guy? Ain't no way. He'll take my job. But then, you know, I thought, no, I got to do the right thing. Obviously, I would have done the right thing anyway. But he was that good from the get-go, and he'd been in a small market in Evansville, Indiana. But he had the innate ability. You know, it's like a draft choice. He was a #1 draft choice, and boy, did he have upside, and did he have potential. He had everything you wanted, everything you needed. Yes, he was raw a little bit. He was young. He was brash. He was all of that. But he was so moldable. I could take him and say, Mark, this, and this, and he would listen and soak it up, bringing his own innate personality and knowledge to the game. And 20 years later, he was the Mark Howard.
He definitely had the skill that you have to be in this business, but he also had that it factor that we so often talk about with athletes, you know, a quarterback going into the draft. And that's the part that I think came across, but if you're sitting at home, you're just like, oh, that guy's really skilled. Yeah. But you had the opportunity to sit with them in the office every day over many years, and then at lunches afterwards. That it factor, where did it come from, and what did that make him as a man away from the screen or the radio mic? It
came from God Almighty to begin with, because God gave him every bit of his innate talent and ability that he had. And it sparked everything that he did after that. So Mark was able to take the talent he had, as we all know, guys, and we're going to have some guys on here in a little while that have been reporting on great athletes and coaches along. It takes more than talent. You got to work at your craft. You got to work at what you do to perfect it, to make it as good as you can. And that's what Mark did. He worked at it. He would watch himself on videotape after every sportscast. He would take them home. I think he fell asleep at night with them, just watching. Fell asleep, but he would do that. And so he wanted to get better. He wanted to improve. He watched other sportscasters. He talked to me about how would you handle this? How do you do this? Especially live shots. And you know, that's just, you're out there hanging out there by yourself, man. You're on that island right by yourself, nobody but you and the camera, and you got to come up with the language. You don't have a script in front of you. So he learned that to perfection. He did it so well, and it was just because he had that it factor that you're talking about there. He was just born with it. This was his chosen profession, and boy, did he do it well.
He certainly did. We're going to get to a lot of Mark's stories and more about him, the person, as the show moves along tonight. But the last thing I want to ask you before I essentially turn the reins over to you for the rest of the hours, even today, we still benefit so much at this station and in our sports department, certainly, from the job that you and Mark and Brian McKeegan, who you'll hear from later, our executive producer, and Bob Kuzak, our sports photographer, did through all of those years. We still are #1 in the ratings here in this market in every sports show we do, and that bleeds over into the ratings that our news programs get. But you guys built through many years where sports changed in this community. I mean, sports in 1986 when he showed up versus 2006 when he left, and the Titans were entrenched and the Predators were becoming established, and everything that had changed over that time. Big change. But you guys built a dominant powerhouse during that time. And the last thing I just want to ask, in part out of humble gratitude, how did you two do it?
We did it because I think, first of all, we loved each other. We had a genuine feeling for each other. We had flaws and we had weaknesses, but his weakness was my strength and vice versa. And so we just parlayed that together. And with Brian McKeegan and with Bob Cusack behind the camera and a great producer, you can just make magic. You can be Disney World. You can be Disneyland. You can do a lot of things with the talent and with the technology and with all of the other qualities that we all brought to the table. And then something else. We cared about our job. We wanted to be number one, and we didn't like it if we were just number one by a little bit. We wanted to be number one by a huge margin. And I think we finally accomplished that at some point down the road with Channel 4 and Channel 2. Great competition all through the years. But we just prided ourselves on what we did. We loved what we did. Hours didn't matter. Saturday and Sunday didn't matter. 7 days a week didn't matter. You just went out and did it. And boy, did we have fun doing it. Look at the places we went, the things that we got to cover, that you guys are covering now, and even doing it in a more brilliant way, because the technology has just changed this whole game. I was so thankful. I tell people all the time, I was so thankful to be born in an era when I was in the golden age of local television. Just think about that. During the eras that I started, and for the first 20 years of my career, maybe 30, if you wanted scores at 6 or 10, who'd you go to? You had to go to me, or Paul Eales, or Bob Bell, or Charlie McAlexander, or Rudy Kalis, or whoever. Not anymore. It's a different game. It's a different ball game. Even the newspapers are trying to play our game, and they're dying every day. So the whole industry, Steve, as you well know, has changed. And I think it's changed for the better. And it's doing a great job, and you guys are doing a great job. So just continue the legacy.
Well, thank you. We try every day, and we're set up well because of the work that you guys did. I'm going to shut up because I can't bring any more to this program. I'm going to turn it over to you and let you bring in a wide variety of guests over the next 48 minutes to talk about Mark Howard, because I can say this definitively. Mark Howard was a really good sportscaster. He was a better man, and everyone here at News Channel 5 absolutely misses him to this day, and we will remember him every day forward. Mark Howard, rest in peace. Hope we'll have the rest of the show when we come back.